Doctors are reprimanded for wrongfully prescribing opioids, sexual misconduct, and patient neglect. But do the sanctions they receive fit the gravity of their actions? Some South Carolina physicians are allowed to continue practicing medicine by the state's medical board even after being cited for issues with their medical care, sometimes including patient death. Despite this, their licenses remain intact, leaving us with questions about patient safety and accountability. Live 5's investigative reporter Emily Johnson sifted through hundreds of public orders from the Board of Medical Examiners, uncovering details about what some local doctors are accused of and how they've been allowed to continue practicing.
Cynthia Denise Fields went to the New Body Center in West Ashley on March 17, 2023 for a liposuction procedure performed by Dr. Kenneth E. Robinson, trusting she was in capable hands.
Once the procedure's done, I'm going to call you back. The phone call never happened.
A medical malpractice lawsuit says Fields was given a combination of Benadryl and lethal doses of lidocaine before her surgery, which had tragic consequences. Cynthia Fields passed away after suffering a cardiac arrest from the toxic levels of lidocaine.
When I think about it, it's like whatever happened from what we know at this point, she suffered and she died alone. And that was not the plan at all.
Documents show Dr. Kenneth Robinson had been under scrutiny long before this incident. The Medical Board of South Carolina first received complaints against Dr. Robinson in 2017 for performing liposuction in his office without the proper emergency plan, prescribing controlled substances over the phone, and not providing the names of prescribed medications to patients. Despite this, the board's actions were limited to public reprimands in 2021, 2023, and 2024, but never stripped Dr. Robinson of his medical license. We reached out to Dr. Robinson about these accusations and were given no response.
Did you guys ever think, oh, it was negligence on behalf of the doctor, or did you think it was just a freak accident? What was going through your mind?
Our mother was still under that doctor's care, and I know they take an oath to preserve life and take care of citizens. In that case, which happened to our mother, I felt like that wasn't upheld.
But Dr. Robinson is just one of several physicians whose license wasn't permanently revoked after a series of complaints to the board. In Columbia, records show Dr. Kevin Burnham's license was suspended for several months after repeatedly writing prescriptions for narcotics without seeing patients. His actions were investigated by the medical board in 2010, 2011, 2015, 2018, 2019, and 2022. Yet despite numerous violations, Burnham's license was never revoked, and so his practice continued.
When you've got repeat offenders, I think that needs to be looked at very closely, and a determination needs to be made. Can this person safely practice medicine?
Dr. Blake Christian Leche was reprimanded by the medical board twice in 2018 and again in 2020 for providing blank pre-signed prescriptions to his former wife. Over 100 forms were used by his wife to fill opioid prescriptions for her friends, according to public documents. Despite this, Dr. Leche's medical license also remained intact. And then there's the case of Dr. Todd Jarose in Spartanburg, who admitted to the medical board that he engaged in sexual relationships with both a patient and nurse. Even so, his license was not revoked. We reached out to every doctor mentioned in this story, but were met with no responses except for Dr. Jarose's attorney, who said no comment.
A total of 1,461 complaints have been made to the Board of Medical Examiners over the last 3 years. The top 3 complaints in 2022, 2023, and 2024 were substandard patient care, unprofessional conduct, and patient neglect.
One thing our medical board seems to have the effect of doing is chasing some very specialized doctors that have a bad record out of their field and into other fields.
Consider the case of D'Angelo Brown, who died inside the Charleston County Detention Center in 2022. His death was ruled a homicide caused by gross medical neglect. The jail's medical director, Dr. Paul Drago, already had his license suspended in North Carolina. His South Carolina license was restricted to work only in the Department of Corrections.
If they can't provide adequate and safe care to people in a hospital setting, then they shouldn't be providing care to folks who have been charged with the crime but haven't been convicted in our state.
If doctors who are cited by the board can continue practicing, what can be done to protect patients?
One thing that I would like to see from the medical board is transparency. So often it's very difficult to find out the reason for a suspension. The reprimands are often private, and it is only in the most extreme situations with the most repeat of offenders that you can actually find out what happened.
Let the consumer know what you're dealing with. Here's your warning. This guy right here has this right here in the past. So if you choose this doctor, it's at your own risk. It's almost like a disclaimer.
Today, Cynthia Fields' family is left with lingering questions and lasting heartbreak.
What is that like to know that he had all these violations and it could have been prevented in even a larger scale?
He should have been shut down a long time ago, honestly, if that's what it is. If he had all those violations and it was known, he should not have been allowed to practice, period. So there are holes in the system that clearly should be filled.
On the South Carolina Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation website, Dr. Robinson's current license status is relinquished, which is defined as an individual who has voluntarily given up their credentials and is no longer using it. His office, the New Body Center, stands abandoned. For Live 5 Investigates, I'm Emily Johnson.
The South Carolina Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation did not agree to an interview with Live 5 News, but it did provide specific answers to our questions via email. In response to the question, how punishment is determined for reported doctors, LLR responded in part, discipline is rendered in each case individually based on the facts of the case. Revocations, indefinite suspensions, probation, public reprimands, and private reprimands are some of the sanctions available to the Board of Medical Examiners. The courts have repeatedly held that the purpose of sanctions is not to punish the licensee, but to protect the public.